Before we start diving into the topic or framing up the issue, we just ask real quick, is everybody aware of who the person who has to make this call is? That person is now on the clock. The first thing to making better decisions faster is that the best way to make better decisions is to make fewer decisions. There's a ton of research around the idea of decision fatigue, and fewer decisions is going to mean better decisions. There's a lot of ways to make better decisions. One of them is this idea of hiring great people. The way in which we focus on making great decisions, or trying to make faster decisions at least, is really understanding who owns the decision. One of the things that we do is when we have a meeting that has a decision, we call it out. When that meeting goes out, if I look at my calendar right now, there are meetings that say decision, colon, and then what's the decision that has to be made, right? That's the title of the meeting. And the value of that is everyone's showing up at the meeting oriented around the idea, we've got a thing to do, right? There is something to do in this time that we have carved out. We're not just meeting to talk about topic XYZ. So we sit down for that meeting, and in the description of the meeting is already listed who's the decider and what's the question. What's the decision that has to get made? Who owns that decision? So before we start diving into the topic or framing up the issue, we just ask real quick, is everybody aware of who the person who has to make this call is? That person is now on the clock. It's their call when we get between 40 and 70, and they've got enough to make the decision. And when they do, that's it. Meeting's over. The end. It's very jarring, right? The meeting I had just before we came on was scheduled to be a 60-minute meeting, and it lasted about 13 minutes. And the answer was we knew what we needed to do, and we're done, right? And now everybody's got 47 minutes back, which is great. But more importantly, we didn't sit there and talk around the topic for that entire time and confuse everybody. The last thing we said in the meeting was, here's what we're going to do. Everybody break. Now it's time to just go execute. And that level of immediacy of decision making and being able to say, I know who owns this call is incredibly important. When there's not that clarity around who owns the call, that's when you see people discuss topics and end up in violent agreement with each other, where they're arguing back and forth for something that they've already aligned on. If you don't have that defined, it's real tough to be successful.